Hello, fondlings, fondlers, fondlettes,
Ooh,
fond fans of all ages and genres. This is
and
Joe.
cut. We're done.
This is Joe. I'm back. Cody can't get rid of me. I'm consistently voted as the people's favorite host. Which people? Who knows? Back for another exciting question mark episode of Friends Casually Not Disagreeing. Cody, it's just Cody and I tonight. We'll get into our topic in a little bit here, but first, let me ask the eternal question. Cody, what have you been up to recently?
Well, I'm going to tell you that in the last week I was up to a lot, but when I'll plug on this podcast, I guess, is I actually watched a movie on my own, all by my
Schwa?
lonesome. Yes. Wait, I watched two movies actually. Oh my
My
God. That's a
God.
well, and the one we watched for the podcast here. So I
Three
watched
movies?
plus three at Man Weekend. So six movies in one week.
Wow.
But anyway, the ones I watched here by myself, I watched No Hard Feelings with Jennifer Lawrence on
Did it give you any
Netflix.
hard feelings?
Did not give me hard feelings, but it was predictably cutish. It was, I don't know, maybe
I
like
thought that movie was better than it had any right to be.
yeah,
I mean, and I don't mean to say that it's like an amazing movie, but
no,
I felt like it was kind of a cut above what I expected it to be.
yeah, nothing to write home about. Good, not great. And then I also watched, and I doubt you would have watched this one, but I had it on my Netflix queue probably for like 5 years.
Hmm.
And I was like, fuck it, I'll put that on when I was home by myself. And that was the film 1922.
I've never even heard of it.
This is based on, I believe, yeah, it's based on a Stephen King novella. But the one two-liner here is a farmer conspires to murder his wife for monetary gain and convinces his teen son to participate. Wilfred and his son Henry soon become delusional as they continue on their lives. I believe the other summary of this I saw basically is like, and that's just where the macabre start to the movie is. So it was pretty fucked up. Um,
Interesting.
and not overly like horror, but definitely pretty messed up. But I did enjoy that one quite a bit. I liked the way the story was told. And I also liked some of the ways they did some of the plot twists, not in the moment, but how they came back as recurring bits in the film as it continued. So,
Interesting. It
um,
looks like that movie has a 91% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty crazy.
maybe should give it a shot. Maybe you could hold your wife's hand and get through it.
Maybe I mean she likes horror stuff even less than I do, so
Ah, yes.
we can hold each
Other
other's parts.
other than that, I've just been supporting a couple local charities. There's one that delivers wooden skewers to people's house, so I gave them some money last
Ah, you
week.
son of a bitch! I knew it was you.
Now, what have you been up to, Joe?
Well, funny you should mention. I don't want to say funny you should mention wooden skewers, but we'll actually get to that in a second. Um, I wanted to mention a couple things first. Friday, my wife and I went to a really weird venue. It's a place here in Grand Rapids called the Tip Top Deluxe.
Hmm.
And it's ostensibly a bar, but they have live music there like all the time. And this band that we have really come to enjoy called Volk, VOLK, was playing there.
Okay.
We actually had previously seen them not once but twice opening for Electric Six, which is a
Ooh.
band that I know you're familiar with, Cody.
Yeah.
But we saw they were playing a solo show in Grand Rapids and thought we'd check it out. So first of all, check out Volk. They're a lot of fun. But also this venue is weird because so it's like it's a bar slash restaurant. There's like all kinds of seating everywhere. And there's a stage in the corner. And when they have shows going on there, they just like leave all the seating in place. So it was
Hmm.
like dinner theater with like punk rock music being played in the corner.
Okay.
Like there was tape full on table service, so we got to like order some appetizers and like have people bring us beers and stuff.
That sounds
It
nice.
was honestly a little awkward for like that kind of show, but also nice because I'm old and hate standing for 4 hours for concerts these days. So,
Or standing at all, am I
um,
right?
well, speaking of standing, it's funny you should bring that back up because that was Friday night. Saturday, we spent most of the day celebrating the 25th anniversary of the seminal Santana album Supernatural.
Mm.
I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Well, sometimes I try to not forget about it, that's for sure.
You did it. But Saturday night, as we were continuing said celebration, I was walking around my finished basement, which has the carpet and everything. And all of a sudden, I felt what I guess you could say was a stabbing pain in my foot.
Mm.
And I quickly realized that there was some sort of wooden object sticking in out of the like bottom of my foot, like kind of toward the heel, but like just like straight up through the bottom of my foot. And turned out it looked like some sort of wooden skewer, like you might use for grilling or something, like a I don't know, 4 or 5 inch piece of one of those.
Jeez.
And don't know where it came from. Really don't know how it was positioned in my carpet in such a way that I could step on it and impale myself. But long story, slightly less long, I ended up going to the emergency room. I think I was in shock because I was like convulsing, like it was like I had chills, but I didn't feel cold. So that was nice and traumatic. But the more traumatic part of that is that in the emergency room, the nice doctor took a look at it and said, well, we'll numb this up and pull that out, get you on your way. And of course, the numbing involved a series of injections around the site of the tiny wooden skewer I had stepped on.
Jeez.
And dear listener, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that getting a shot with a needle directly in the bottom of your foot was now mind you, I had brain surgery last fall,
Oh, here we go.
and the injections in my foot that I had Saturday night were more painful and traumatic than any experience I had related to said brain surgery.
Mm.
I think it was literally the most painful thing I've ever felt in my life.
God.
Thankfully, when they got around to actually pulling the skewer out of my foot, I didn't feel that. But on balance, it probably would not have been any worse if they had just pulled that out without, the numbing injections.
So did it break off? Is that or they tried to get it like trying to think
I
like you
don't,
stepped on it and then like did you pull part of it out or how did
I don't know. It seemed like it was like a broken piece of it that was just like stuck in my carpet somehow.
fuck?
Cause like I took a step on it, like I stepped on it and like it hurt right away. And I think I don't know if I stepped, I mean, it happened. So, I was like immediately traumatized, but it seemed like there was just like a couple inch section that had broken off that must have been sticking up in my carpet somehow.
That's so weird.
It was crazy. I mean, my wife is a nurse, so she immediately was like, went and got like a bunch of like hydrogen peroxide and like bandages and stuff, and she was just going to try to pull it out at home. But I kind of tried to like pull on it a little bit, and it did not want to budge at all. Like it felt like it was just really lodged up in there. So that was the thing that made me a little nervous about having her try to do it, and made me decide we should probably go have a professional do it.
So how far into your foot was it actually?
Well, based on the, let's say, bloodline that I
Yeah.
saw on the skewer after he pulled it out, I'd say at least an inch,
Yeah.
like
Wow.
maybe even more than that. It was like really up in there. I mean, thankfully, it doesn't seem like it, hit a nerve or like anything important. Like it's been,
That's nuts.
yeah. I mean, it's very mildly tender, but it's mostly been okay,
Is it
ever
like a
since they
recovery
pulled
or
it out.
you're okay to go?
It was funny. I kind of expected them to give me antibiotics just to be on the safe side, but they didn't. Like The guy literally said, just don't go in any kind of, lakes or rivers or anything barefoot for a week or two until it's really healed up and you should be fine.
Wow,
But I mean, it didn't bleed at all. Like once he pulled it out, it did not like just leak any blood out or anything. So
that's
it
nuts.
kind of almost immediately healed up. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I do think I was in shock. Like I can never sleep in anymore. Like even on weekends, I'm awake at like 7:30 a.m. at the latest.
Yeah.
And I went to bed around midnight Saturday, and Sunday I didn't get up until almost 11 a.m. And when I did get up, like it was hard to physically get up. Like I just felt completely exhausted. So
Mm.
I think my body was just, traumatized and still trying to recover.
Now I have to ask, just
Uh,
since we're on posterity here for the podcast, you're positive you stepped on a skewer in your basement. It's not that you were listening to the Supernatural album by Carlos Santana on random and Smooth had skipped to Love of My Life featuring Dave Matthews. Could that have been the pain?
First of all, real fans call him Dave. Secondly, I
I'm
like
not a
that
real fan.
song. I guess not.
Fair enough. It's all about put your lights on with Everlast. All right. What are we talking about tonight,
Listen,
Jojo?
well, now we're going to talk about how amazing the entire 1999 multi-platinum album Supernatural by Santana is.
Maria, Maria.
Exactly.
Exactly.
What we're actually talking about is a movie.
Called
It's a movie which is currently the number one movie on Netflix. It
number
has
one.
a 97% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which kind of blows my mind. We can definitely
97.
definitely talk about that a little bit later. It's a movie that, as I mentioned before, I listen to a lot of other I don't want to, you know, frighten or surprise anyone, but there are other podcasts in the world besides ours. You
Mm,
shouldn't listen to any of them. You should only listen to Fond, but they
sounds
do
better.
exist.
Okay.
And occasionally, when I don't want to hear Cody's voice, I'll listen to some of these other podcasts, many of which deal with the world of film and television. And I had heard many of them mention this movie called Hitman. It's two words, hit spaceman.
Ooh.
And everybody spoke highly of it. It sounded like it was just a fun time. Nice, fun watch. It's on Netflix. It's free. So I wanted to check it out. It's also directed by Richard Linklater, who I think is probably one of the most interesting filmmakers of the past couple decades, if nothing else, just due to the kind of variety of his work. Amongst other things, he has directed Dazed and Confused,
Hmm.
which I think is a classic for people of our vintage. Um, he directed the Before trilogy, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight, I think is the last one,
Correct.
which is like an ongoing series of romantic films. He made the movie Boyhood, which was kind of a revolutionary filmmaking method in which I want to say it was like every 10 years he checked in with the same cast. So it was like actually a scripted film that he started making like, I think it was like 30 years ago at this point.
Wow.
Um, and like, I think it was every 10 years would just like bring the same people together and make a new segment of it. Um, he also directed School of Rock starring Jack Black,
Yeah. Love that
which
film.
is a really fun movie. So I mean his filmography kind of runs the gamut from, like really wacky comedies to, darker, more serious things.
Ooh, and a Scanner Darkly as well.
I was gonna mention that. I didn't know if anyone else had actually seen that movie, but I quite
Everybody's
enjoyed it.
seen that movie. John Wick Point One. That's no, never mind.
No, I wouldn't say
Oh.
that. But anyway, really interesting filmography.
Whoa.
So one of the other reasons that I kind of wanted to check out this new movie, Hitman. Cody, I know you seem to have not heard anything about this movie before earlier today when I told you to watch it.
I have not. No, I never even heard of this. Actually, it's funny because I went on my Netflix knowing that you had told me it was the top film, and You know how they have like the rows of all of the recommendations of
Yeah.
different things. I couldn't find it in any of them.
Really?
Yeah, so I had to actually click on the sidebar. I mean, I could have typed in the name, but
Yeah.
I was like, it's got to be right here because it's number one, right? So then I had to go over to the little like graph chart thing, and then it came up as
Yeah.
number one.
The way Netflix with their recommendations works is weird because, like, I knew it was a popular movie on Netflix, so I thought I could just, I mean, it took me like a minute of scrolling down to actually find the list of like the top 10 movies on
Yeah,
Netflix right now. But yeah, this is a movie. It stars Glen Powell and I want to say Adria Arjona or Arjona, perhaps.
stars Guy Pearce,
It does not. It stars Glen Powell and Adria Arjona.
stars a slightly less deathly looking Guy Pearce.
It stars Glen Powell, who
Lake Powell is named after.
many people would probably know from being the handsome guy who's not Tom Cruise in Top Gun Maverick.
I don't think most people have seen that. What else you got?
That's it really. He's been in a couple, I mean, he's
Spy
been in a
Kids
bunch of
3D, game over. Come
he's
on.
been in a bunch of rom-coms. One of them was pretty good. I can't remember what it was called though.
Oh, I see what you did
Um,
there. I got nothing.
yeah, anyway. And then Adria Arjona was one of the stars of the best Star Wars property since Empire Strikes Back. That's right, Andor.
Ahsoka.
Andor.
Oh, who is she in Andor? I don't recognize this person.
She was, I want to say Bix. She was Andor's like longtime friend slash
It's that
semi love
junkyard?
interest. Yeah.
Okay. I remember the character. I don't remember her looking like this, but maybe. Okay.
Well, we'll talk about how these two look in a second here.
Oh, she was also in Morbius.
It's Morbin time.
Always is. Bix Colleen in Andor. Yep.
There you
Okay.
go. Um, very brief plot overview of this movie. Glenn Powell stars as Gary Johnson, who we're intended to believe is kind of a nerdy loner who teaches philosophy and psychology at the University of New Orleans. He has glasses, so you know he's a real loser.
Oh,
Um,
loser.
and we learn that he also kind of moonlights with the local police department. It seems like at the beginning of the movie, he's doing kind of like tech work. Like he tells us he has an aptitude for tinkering with technology. So it seems like he's kind of helping with them with like recording equipment and stuff for these undercover operations they're doing. Was that your understanding as well?
Yeah, I think so. It seemed like early he was kind of behind the scenes involved with
Yeah.
busts, and then later on he was just involved with busts.
Yeah. So at the beginning, he's kind of doing this behind the scenes thing, and they're working a case where someone is posing. Well, Jasper, who's a cop, is supposed to be posing as a police officer or posing as a hitman to try to like bust someone in a murder for hire type situation. Um, but Jasper is suspended because it turns out he's not really great at his job or at being a good person.
Kind of a douche.
So Gary, the nerdy dude, kind of gets thrown in at the last second to fill in as the pretend hitman in this situation. And he's kind of nervous about it at first, and nobody really knows what to expect from him. But it turns out he's a natural because he has studied psychology for so long. And the initial situation goes really well. And from there, it turns into kind of an ongoing side hustle of sorts, although it seems like it would consume a lot of his time,
Yeah,
where he continues to work with the police officers, with the police department, posing as a variety of fake hitmen. I thought it was interesting. They like to remind us a few times throughout the movie that hitmen, as we understand them from various media, don't really exist. Um,
kind of a
what
shame, but
I know, and I mean, I think what they mean by that is, you know, the kind of ultra professional shadowy assassin figure that just does this all the time and never gets caught and is like not on anybody's radar.
This movie just canceled a major gaming series.
It sure
Out.
did. Get out of here with your bald head and your barcode.
That's right. I hit start and I was like, this is fake, and I quit.
um, but we see him throughout the movie kind of adopt a variety of personas to work these different cases, and it seems like he has fun, studying the would-be targets of these sting operations and trying to figure out what kind of hitman he thinks they're looking to hire and how he can win them over. Um, so I'm going to ask you, Cody, what did you think of that aspect of this movie?
Well, honestly, I got a couple things here. One, actually, I like kind of how they presented that on screen, which was him having these conversations with people who wanted to off somebody, and then there'd be the conversation with them, and then somehow he would basically entrap is the wrong word because I know that means something a little bit different legally, but basically once he got the confession out of the person and got the money, then they just showed the like mug shot, and I really liked how they kept showing like the mug shot of all the different people that he caught. Most of which
Yeah,
were
that's fun.
surprised to find out that they were in trouble or had been recorded or whatever the case was. So I liked that. I also really did enjoy as the movie went on, like the lengths that Gary went to like seem to be different people, coloring his teeth and putting in contacts and like changing how he talked and his hairstyle. And I just thought that was all kind of interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, it gets pretty wacky as it goes on. At one point he's literally impersonating Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. And like
Like,
I think what I don't know if it was supposed to be one of the characters he does kind of reminded me of like Tilda Swinton from a couple movies.
oh yeah, I guess good call. I didn't catch that, but yeah, you're
Um,
right.
but yeah, it seems like he's having fun with it. I mean, I think the movie wants us to have fun with, the kind of wackiness of some of these personas he comes up with.
I liked the guy he was pulling the clay pigeons for
Oh, that's
over the
hilarious.
field, and he's like punching the guy in the ball, and they're laughing. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's got like neck tattoos talking about the pussification of the legal system.
That's right.
Yeah, I thought that was a lot of fun. So we get kind of like it's not quite a well, I guess it's a montage. It's like an extended montage though, where we get kind of a
Yeah.
series of these different encounters. Um, we see him taking on these different personas and helping with all these different arrests. And then enters Madison.
Ooh.
Oh, Madison.
And the Y is not where you think it would be.
It's true. Do you think we're
Wrong.
ever going to see her again?
I don't know. I hope so.
I hope her and Wong are doing okay.
I hope they have a buddy comedy at some point.
Um, so Madison wants to ostensibly hire a hitman because her husband is an abusive piece of shit,
Oh,
and she just doesn't seem like she sees any way out of the situation. And this I should mention is our female lead, whose name I already lost here.
Adria
Adria
Arjona.
Arjona. Um, but the story wants us to believe that Gary is, kind of an emotionally intelligent and um empathetic person, and he kind of detects, it seems like, that maybe she doesn't really want to have her husband killed. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that she's smoking hot and he's also smoking hot and they're going to end up boning down at some point in the movie. No, because at this point, it's just because he can tell that she's just,
Yeah,
looking for a way out of this bad situation.
agreed.
Um, so he basically tells her the logical thing, which is, hey, you have all this money you're trying to give me to kill your husband. Why don't you just take that money and leave your husband and start a new life? And she's like, oh, I guess I could do that. And then they part ways, but not before he points out that she has his number in case she ever changes her mind.
That's just being a caring citizen.
He's just such an upstanding guy, and again, I'm sure this scene has nothing to do with the fact that they're just both incredibly attractive people.
Well, I mean, yes, but I don't know. He seems to, prior to that point in the movie, at least, his character is presented as like he has never made a decision like this prior to.
Yeah, that's true. It's,
It's
he's,
not like he's a player, he's in his position or something.
yeah. I mean, I do believe, like, I don't know. We'll talk about this in a little bit, maybe, but I mean, I would think in a situation like this, especially to try to avoid entrapment charges, you have to be sure that the person actually wants to go through with this.
Yeah.
And, it seems reasonable that if you think there's any like actual doubt there, or that they're not someone who's really capable of that, that you might want to try to talk them out of it, or at least give them the opportunity.
Yeah, it'd be nice, you know.
It doesn't help if they're super hot. I mean, it doesn't hurt if they're super hot, I should say. It helps if they are. Um, so that case, that lead kind of falls through because Gary kind of talks her down. Um, and the rest of his Popo friends are kind of surprised by that, because they're so used to him sealing all these deals. Shockingly, at some point after this, Gary's chilling at night and his phone rings.
You'll never guess
And
who it was.
you'll never guess who it was. I mean, you're going to win all the money if you guess that it was Madison, the super hot chick that he had just met in the bar.
Uh-huh.
So Madison calls him and he's all like, "Oh, did you change your mind?" And she's like, "No, I'm at this volunteer event with a bunch of puppies and I wanted to see if you wanted to come hang out with me and these puppies."
He's a cat guy, we should point out.
Oh, yeah, I should mention he is a total, sad loser weirdo who lives alone with his two cats, which are named Id and Ego,
Wow.
because he's such a nerd.
Taylor Swift, take note. He is talking to you.
Ah, it's true. So Madison calls and is like, "Hey, are you a dog person?" And he's like, "Yeah, babe, I'm totally a dog person," because he's pretending to be this dude, Ron, which is the persona he has adopted for her.
Not Captain Ron with Kurt Russell, to be clear.
I mean, some would say this movie might have been better had it been Captain Ron starring Kurt
This is
Russell.
very true.
So he goes and she shows him her puppies, and I mean, actual puppies at this volunteer event. But then they start hooking up.
What? Right in the
No one,
puppy cage, which I thought was weird.
yeah, right? Like,
In the
what?
park, kids were around.
Everyone's watching. Like, yeah, there's kids everywhere.
I think they call it, what they call it, a code brown in the movie?
Like a code white.
Oh no.
Anyway. Um, so yeah, they
Now,
start hooking
so
up.
let's pause there. So at
Okay.
that point, I mean, this is,
Yes.
we should say this is labeled sort of romantic comedy, but maybe a little darker than
Ish.
your
Yeah.
typical romantic comedy. So at that point, could you script the rest of how this was going to play out? Where were
Oh
you at
no.
here? Oh no?
I mean, well, I certain parts, yes, but like certain parts,
Okay.
definitely not.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
um, how about you?
I felt like I had a good idea of some of the events definitely that were going to happen afterwards. I guess if I'm thinking of a particular thing that happens here later that you might be referencing, maybe I didn't see that coming, but I
Yeah,
kind of thought she was going to do a few things that she did. Let's put it that way.
that's fair. Yeah, well, so it's worth mentioning. Jasper, the guy who Gary kind of, I mean, he's a piece of shit cop, but Gary kind of steals his job basically because he's way better at it than Jasper was.
Yeah.
I felt like Jasper kind of looked like Matthew McConaughey's even dirtier, scummier brother.
Makes
Like
sense.
if Matthew McConaughey went even longer without showering than
Well,
he
if you make McConaughey
currently
look
does.
worse, but Guy Pearce look
Yeah,
better,
no, yeah.
that's what I meant.
But I mean, pretty much as soon as I saw Jasper, I had a feeling that he was going to become an antagonist in some
Hmm.
way.
Yeah. Okay.
That seemed pretty obvious. And I mean, one of the things I think you're getting at is Madison also kind of just felt like a giant red flag to me.
Yeah.
You kind of felt like something was going to happen with her. So while they're in the process of, having this sexual relationship, which the movie kind of spends a lot of time showing us, like showing them hooking up.
Yeah. Role
We get to
playing and
see
all
like
kinds
a
of good
role
stuff.
play fantasy, all kinds of stuff. I saw like I think in the description on Netflix, it quoted a critic as saying that this is like one of the sexiest films ever made,
Oh, no.
which I don't think I agree with that, but
No.
um I agree. Both of the leads are very attractive, and I feel like there's a lot of chemistry there. So,
Sexiest movie ever made, listeners. Check out Captain Ron from
oh
1992.
man, I mean,
Should do that as a classic or crap.
my my mast is rising just thinking about it. My sail is being hoisted. I don't know how ships work.
Really?
Anyway, remember how we were going to make this a short podcast episode?
Yes. Keep going. What are you talking about? You're
Anyway, so one night they're out and about and they're leaving this club, and who should they encounter but Ray, Madison's ex-husband,
bum
who
bum bum.
seems like a really awesome dude. But also, is he her ex-husband? Question mark, because she has told Gary that they're divorced, but Ray does not seem to be under that same impression.
Yeah.
He refers to her as his wife, and Gary's like, he wants to start shit with Gary after Gary says that he's her boyfriend.
Well, I will
And
say, to break in here on this, sorry, but the scene outside the club with Ray, he seems kind of douchey.
yeah,
But I should point out, like, at least as far as I saw watching, was there actual like proof that he was an asshole to this lady at all? Like the story
this
she's
is a
telling?
good question. This is a good question.
Okay.
And one of the reasons that I say Madison is a giant red flag, because I agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like based on the way she described him, like I kind of expected it to be that, Ray is like the head of a Russian mob family or something. Like, I seriously, like, I thought it was going to be that he's like some kind of hardcore criminal or like involved in organized crime. And like, that's why she didn't see a way out, a way to escape from him. But yeah, like you said, when they run into him, it seems like he's just kind of like a douchey, like business bro or something.
Yeah, I assumed like it would have changed the tone of the movie a little more darker yet, but I kind of assumed at some point like she was gonna have like bruises from this guy or like some kind of evidence of like him beating her or something.
Yeah,
We don't really get any of that though.
no. Yeah, we really, I mean, as you said, we don't actually see any real evidence that he is, abusive to her, besides him kind of being an asshole outside the club. But in response to him being an asshole and wanting to start shit with Gary, Gary pulls a gun on him and
That's just
tells
good
him to
strategy.
fucking apologize to the lady. And honestly, after that happened, I kind of expected Ray to try to come after Gary, like because in my mind he must be this like horrible, like hardened criminal. I thought it was going to end up with like, him trying to track Gary down and like fuck him up or, something like that.
Yeah, I was
But
thinking
again, nothing like that happens.
I was thinking the twist is going to be she's a terrible person and goes on to do all these terrible things. But
Yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting too. But we'll
oh
get
well.
to that.
Okay.
So they get out of that situation and go and get a milkshake at some kind of little ice creamy place.
Yeah.
And who should Gary lock eyes with
Uh-oh.
but Jasper, Shitty McConaughey himself? And
The jig is
coincident
up.
well, coincidentally, Gary and Madison, I mean, I'm sorry, Ron, which is
Ron.
her persona, Ron and Madison had just been talking about how, they didn't really know anything about each other or like hadn't met any people from each other's lives. And then all of a sudden, Jasper walks up and is like, hey, man. And like, acts all kind of buddy buddy. And quote unquote Ron, who is actually Gary, introduces Jasper to Madison. Um, which Jasper, even though Jasper is no longer the kind of face of these sting operations, he is still kind of working on cases behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So he pieces together the fact that Madison is the woman that Gary had talked down from having her husband killed. Um, so I mean, let's just get through the rest of it really quickly here. Uh, Ray, the ex-husband, it turns out, tries to hire a hitman to have Madison killed. And it just happens that the hitman that he gets in touch with is Gary, who blows the setup that they are trying to use to pinch Ray because, well, first when he realizes that it's Ray, he kind of arranges things so that they're facing away from each other so Ray won't recognize him. But Ray starts talking some shit about Madison's new boyfriend, and Gary can't stand for that and reveals himself and kind of blows the whole operation. Um, so Ray goes off and says he's going to figure it out himself. Gary goes and tells Madison this and tries to get her to like leave town because she's in danger. And at some point in the future, Ray turns up dead. Dun dun dun.
What? And at
Um,
that moment, we knew what had happened.
well, we really knew what had happened because he had apparently been shot through the heart, which is exactly the place that Gary had previously told Madison would be the best spot to shoot someone when you're trying to execute them.
Ah, I didn't catch that piece
Yeah.
from the shooting range.
So Gary obviously knows Madison did it. The cops are suspicious, especially when they find out that she stands to inherit a bunch of insurance money because
Hmm.
Ray had just taken out like $1 million life insurance policy a month or two beforehand. Um, I'm trying to remember. I mean, he says that he thinks it's a botched drug deal, but there's some hesitancy, or they're trying to rule her out as a suspect. So he kind of comes clean about the fact that he's had this relationship with her.
Well,
Um,
he said he saw her
oh, he
like
says he
after
saw
that.
her. Yeah, like he admits that they had like some
Yeah, they
encounter after
bumped
the
into each
fact.
other at the Frosty place or whatever.
So they set up what's supposed to be a sting operation with him going to see her under the Ron persona. Um, and he actually, it's audio only for some reason, but the entire time he's showing her messages on his phone, like telling her what to say. Like the first one is, we're being listened to, I'm on your side. And he kind of walks her through the conversation by showing her these text messages.
Yeah,
And,
which was clever, but
yeah, it was pretty clever.
I also was like, when did he do that? Is that when he said I'll be no, because the other guy wrote I don't know when he did that because the other guy wanted to be with him
Did
all the
what?
time then. Like wrote all the text messages. Like
Well,
they seemed to be like on his phone and he was like going through the script.
oh no, he was doing it like, I think he was typing them while he was there. I think they showed him kind of like
Oh,
quickly
maybe.
writing stuff. Like the first one, I think he writes the first one like while he's walking up to her door,
Okay.
like just saying like they're listening. And then I think they just kind of show him doing it throughout.
Hmm.
But he basically like coaches her into, feigning outrage that he would accuse her of doing this. And um she says, as far as like the motive with the money, she says that Ray's family has money, so they just do shit like that as far as the insurance policy. And she says that she didn't even know about it until after he was murdered. And like she kind of just feigns being mad at Ron, quote unquote, and tells him to get the fuck out of her house. So after that, the cops are basically satisfied. They take that as, her being truthful that she had nothing to do with it. It really was just a drug deal gone bad. Except
Dun dun dun.
shitty McConaughey himself, Gary returns to Madison's house, I guess it is, a cute
Yeah,
little house,
yeah.
and walks through the door, and Madison is sitting there sharing a beer with none else but Jasper. And Jasper reveals that he's been following both of them and has kind of pieced together what has happened and
He's,
basically tries to blackmail them
yeah.
into giving him the insurance money. You know, I mean, he's a scumbag, so he probably would just, walk away and forget about it if they gave him enough money. But also, they need the money. That's a risk they can't take. So at one point, he's going to go get another beer, and Madison's like, I'll get it. So she goes and comes back and gives him beer, which he starts drinking. And shortly thereafter, starts kind of convulsing and passes out on the floor.
Lots of questions.
Like
Just
what?
like she just keep a drawer full of drugging
That
drugs?
that's a really good question. Yeah, I don't think they say what she actually used to drug him.
Yeah, she just said like something that was supposed to knock him out, but she overdosed how much it was or something.
Yeah, yeah. Which I mean, I guess that could be any number of things.
Yeah.
So, they're Jasper is, lying on the floor, passed out. We know that he's just passed out. He's not dead. Gary, who is the super nice guy who could never hurt a fly in real life, who has been serving the side of justice this entire time. Obviously, he's in over his head in this moment, so he does the only rational thing, which is say, "What the fuck, Madison? I have to call the cops now. I'm sorry, you're super hot and I love having sex with you, but I'm not a criminal. I can't follow you down this path." Maybe Madison pulls a gun or something and Gary has to kill her in self-defense. I don't know, but like he's a good dude, and it just stands to reason that he would try to do the right thing in this situation, right?
I don't know. Did you see how hot she was?
I forgot how hot she was. God damn it.
Yeah.
I mean, reconsidering and thinking about how hot she is, maybe the right thing to do is just murder this cop.
Yeah, that seems about right.
I feel like if your lady friend is hot enough, the right choice is always to murder an actual police officer.
Or maybe it was just that he didn't want to go to jail. I kind
Mm,
of took it more that way, to be honest, but
I
also that
mean,
he
I
got to
think
keep the relationship.
it was that. Like it was that,
Yeah.
but also it kind of felt like a leap to me. We'll come back to that in a second though.
All right.
So Gary's like, "Hey, we have to murder this cop." Like, which Madison actually seems hesitant about, even though she has murdered her husband already.
Yeah.
Um, I will say that I thought the way he did it was kind of interesting. He basically just ties a plastic grocery bag around the guy's head while he's lying on the floor passed out in order to asphyxiate him.
Yeah.
And then, he basically describes his idea for how they can stage the body to make it look like it was a suicide.
Yeah, that's just suicide. That guy suffocated himself.
Yeah. I mean, he says they're going to like, leave him in his car somewhere with a bottle of pills and
Now, I will say right at that moment, I had another side theory watching this movie, and it was right about here where I decided that it was not true, which was that Madison herself was like a real hitman, which I thought would have been an interesting twist.
I
How
kind
sh
of thought about that too.
But when she like was like, "What are you doing with the cop?" Then I was like, "Oh, this is maybe not where this is going."
Yeah.
But anyway,
So so Jasper dies. We see him take his last breath through the plastic bag.
R.I.P. Jasper.
Man, this movie is sexy and fun.
Sexy.
And then we get a cut to some point in the future where Gary and
Yeah.
Madison are apparently. Oh, actually, before that, there's this really weird exchange they have where they're kind of like talking while Jasper, I think it's while he's still actively dying.
Yes.
They have this exchange about how like they're in it together forever now. Like they're like locked in with each other because they're doing this together. And they like make these exchanges that are basically wedding vows. And then Jasper dies. And then we cut to some point in the future where they are apparently married and have kids together. And Gary is still teaching at the college and they're just like living normal, married people lives happily ever after. The end.
Yay!
So, Cody, what did you make of this movie?
The feel-good movie of the year. Um, I tell you, I just don't even know what to make of this movie, to be
What did
honest.
you make of this movie that has a 97% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes?
Well, I can get into details here, but first of all, I can say it's not 97% fresh. I can assure you of that at the moment. My biggest question, I guess, watching this, well, I'll throw out a good and a bad for you both. On the plus side, I thought Glen Powell did a fantastic job in all of his like personas that he played in the movie. I thought he was really believable actually with all of his undercover aliases that he used. I thought he as Gary was believable. I thought he as
Oh,
Ron was
that's where I
pretty
disagree with
believable.
you.
Go
That is
ahead.
where I disagree with you. I agree with almost everything you said, except for the part about him being believable as Gary, because no amount of wearing jorts and glasses can make me believe that Glenn Powell is just like a nerdy loner who nobody wants to get down with.
Well, okay, but what I'm saying is like he in character, like I would have taken that guy's psychology class, like watching
That's
him
fair.
interact with his
I mean,
students and stuff. I
yeah,
was
that's
like,
fair. I
yeah,
mean, his performance is good, but like just physically, like I
yeah,
just
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
buy it in that regard.
Yeah, yeah, I thought he like literally I was like, oh, this guy's a great professor. I'd go like
Yeah,
listen to this
no, yeah, I
guy's
agree.
rhetorical conversations he's doing. So I liked all that about him. I will say as a flip side to that, I just wasn't sure if I was supposed to feel good for these characters in the
But
movie.
they're so
Like,
hot.
yeah, but I just, there's a lot to unpack there. They do really questionable things.
They're so
They
hot.
have a semi-believable relationship with each other, but just, I
A
don't
sexy
know.
relationship with each other.
Yeah, they do, but they're
No, I
both
agree. Well,
terrible
okay.
people.
Okay.
Gary has soiled his good name.
Well, let's remove the cop murdering ending from the equation for a second. Like prior to that, how did you feel about both of the characters?
Prior to the moment when they killed the cop.
Yes.
I mean, at that point, they were already down the road where like she was killing her husband, and he was like, I'll protect you, I'll throw it under the rug for you. So I don't know. And even before that, like we talked about, like we really were given no evidence that her
Yeah. Well,
ex-husband question mark, still
I
husband question mark was a bad dude.
I think that I mean I think Madison is my biggest problem with this movie. And like nothing against the actress. Like I thought, she's super hot, which she's supposed to be. I thought she
She
gave a
played that well.
I mean, I thought she gave a good performance. I thought her and Glenn Powell had a lot of good chemistry together. But just like the way the character was written, I mean, we've kind of touched on it a couple times. Like, I just kept seeing these red flags around her to where, like, I expected her to be like a femme fatale. I mean, maybe like you said, like an actual hit woman or something. Like, I thought she was gonna reveal herself to be some sort of like nefarious femme fatale who
Yeah,
was,
something.
gonna maybe turn on Gary at some point. And it's like, by the end of it, I didn't know how I was supposed to feel about her character. Like, was I supposed to think that she was actually a good person who like just got dragged into some shit? And I mean, the stuff with the husband really didn't help that because we don't really see him being a monster to her
Yeah.
because she's wishy-washy about the divorce thing. Like, there was just something about the way the character was written, I feel like, that had me kind of second guessing things throughout most of the movie.
Yeah, I guess then too, like how when he first meets her at that diner, cafe, whatever it is, like how she's like in tears and like so afraid of her life and all these things. And then later, apparently is okay enough to like kill people. And
Yeah, it feels like a really sharp turnaround too.
Yes,
Like I don't think they say what amount of time has passed, but like
doesn't seem like a lot.
it doesn't seem like a lot. And maybe it would have helped if it had been like a year, which I don't think it was. It doesn't seem like it was that much time. But
Yeah,
it's literally like she's like, her life is in shambles. And, like you said, she's crying and breaking down. And like minutes later, it's like, hey, Ron, want to come pet my puppies?
yeah,
I'm, I have this awesome new house and my life is super great now all of a sudden.
right.
And that drastic turnaround is part of what made me kind of suspicious of her because it's like, who is this person?
Yeah, it seemed like an act in the movie
Yeah.
at first. So yeah, I agree. She's a little shaky. He's like a, I don't know, more believable character, but he still is making decisions that I really question. Like
Yeah, I agree.
his personality and his career choices he's made for a long time prior to that don't seem to necessarily jive with the decisions he makes in the moment. Which I think there was like that one little scene in there where he met like his ex, and like she was
Yeah.
like, "You need to just like reach for what you want and grab it and have passion for stuff." And I
Yeah, his
guess he
ex-wife
did.
is like his best friend, and yeah, she's all
Yeah.
I thought it was funny that the ex-wife basically tells him that he's a loser and needs to stop living alone with his two cats.
Yeah. I will say
Uh,
the shot of him in his kitchen at his very small circular table with only one chair was like the
yeah,
saddest shot I've ever seen. Oh my God.
well, it's like a circular table with the like leaves on both sides folded down.
But
That was
just
pretty
one
sad.
chair. There wasn't even a
Yeah,
second chair. You
I
can't even buy a
mean,
table set with one chair. It was so sad.
cats don't need chairs, Cody.
I know,
Cats
but
don't need
table
chairs.
sets come with at least two chairs. He
That's
actively took
fair.
one out of the table. It was so sad.
Yeah, yeah, man. This is why I wanted to talk about this movie with someone is because it was so weird. Like, I just what a weird fucking movie this is. It's just totally all over the place. And like, I feel like me saying that makes it sound like it's a super negative thing. Like I'm really down on this movie. But the weird thing is I enjoyed it. Like I had a lot of fun with it, at
It
least
was
at
a fun
times.
movie.
Like it's a fun movie, but like just so weird.
And we have yet to talk about the best part of the movie.
But wait, there's more because Cody, did you know that this movie is based on a true story, kind of, sort of, maybe?
Oh, only because you shared it with me. I did not prior to that.
Well, I mean, so here's another weird thing about this movie, which I think was probably a good idea. There is like at the beginning of the movie, there is nothing saying like based on a true story or even like inspired by true events or any permutation of that. But then at the end of the movie, after we
Yeah.
see Gary and Madison living sexily ever after, all of a sudden a screen comes up that's like dedicated to Gary Johnson, 19 whatever to 2022. And there's like pictures of this person, and you're like, what? um,
Hmm.
so apparently this movie was inspired by an article from Texas Monthly Magazine, which was originally published back in October of 2001 and details the life of a real man, apparently named Gary Johnson, who I was honestly surprised by how many of the things in the movie actually seem like they were true based on the article.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I will say the biggest thing that was not actually based in fact is the whole relationship with Madison and the murder that it led to.
Sure it wasn't.
But
Wink.
like most of the trappings leading up to that were apparently based on true events. Supposedly, I mean, there were some differences. The real Gary Johnson, first of all,
He was a
worked in
libertarian
Houston.
candidate for president.
Yes,
That threw
no,
me off so much. I couldn't take it once I saw the name. I was like, come
that is
on.
kind of funny. But he lived in Houston, Texas, not in New Orleans.
Okay.
Um, his main job was actually with the DA's office he worked on evidence as an investigator. So he did teach, but he taught at a community college and only 2 nights a week. But his main job was actually closer to law enforcement than the movie, establishes at the beginning. He did actually live alone and have two cats named It and Ego.
Oh,
He was actually really good friends with one of his three ex-wives, which is not a thing that's established in the movie. And his ex-wife actually did make a comment in the article that is similar to what the ex-wife in the movie tells him about, like basically calling him a loner and kind of a weirdo. And he did kind of fall into the job of playing pretend hitman. The way that went down was slightly different, though. He was working as an investigator for the DA's office, and just a case came up through the DA's office where they needed someone to pose as a hitman. And they were basically just like, well, I guess you're doing that, Gary, because we don't have anyone else working for us. Um, but the crazy thing is the amount of work he did on these cases was true. Like he apparently got heavily involved in like creating disguises and doing fake accents and really trying to tailor his performance to the person that he was like meeting up with to try to convince them to, hire him as a contract killer. They said that he was responsible for over 60 convictions for murder for hire charges, including someone who was like the wife of like a prominent
I'm
Republican,
shocked.
yeah, lawmaker. I forget exactly who that was. But he apparently like gained a lot of notoriety in law enforcement circles and became like in high demand for like police departments all over, the region that he was in. Um, he apparently actually got shot twice, I think, in the line of duty.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like a really interesting thing. And like honestly, part of me feels like if they had stuck more to like the facts of his actual life, it could have made possibly an even more compelling movie. I mean, it would have been a different movie. Obviously, it wouldn't have been as like, comedic or sexy, but it just sounds like a really fascinating story.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's people who have a life that is similar to what we see in this movie in real life. That's pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
What I mean, he does talk about like in the article, because they actually have an interview with the real Gary Johnson, and he talks about the fact that like hitmen as people think of them like don't really exist, but you know, probably because that idea is out there that there are people that are looking for a professional to hire to kill somebody. Um, and I mean, this is like one thing that I thought was interesting, which is something we kind of touched on talking about the movie, is that the real Gary apparently did go out of his way to like really make sure the people he was talking to were like certain that they wanted to go through with this, like to the point where he would like kind of try to talk them out of it. Like he had certain like things that he would always ask them to like really put it on them and make sure that it wasn't entrapment. So I thought that was kind of fascinating too.
Yeah, again, it just goes back to how unique that profession would be. I think it's
Yeah.
insane to think somebody's in that pressure cooker of a moment and trying to talk somebody down from something. Because at least in the movie, and I don't know, I assume that was based on the law, they really stressed that you needed like the confession and the money.
Yeah, and that is I mean that is something that they mentioned in the article too, like he had to actually get payment for it. It's funny though because they talked about I mean one thing that stood out to me in the movie, which like I mean it's fine that they didn't really explore it that much in the movie, but I think it's the first case he goes on. He asked for like $2,500 up front and then 2,500 when it's done. And I immediately turned to my wife and was like, it feels like having someone killed should cost more than $5,000. Like, I feel like that should, especially at any sort of professional level, in my mind, that should be at least like a six-figure, arrangement.
And your wife was like, I can do
Um,
it for a $10 skewer. I
uh,
mean,
hey, but one thing the real Gary Johnson said in this interview is that like part of the, adoption of these different personas is that they were trying to meet these different would-be criminals kind of on their level and where they were. So, if it was someone living in a trailer park who's going to try to give you her speedboat or something, that was fine. Or,
Yeah.
but like on the other hand, he would meet with like, well-to-do people and the number for them would be six figures.
Yeah, switch who you're talking to, what the
Um,
details are.
I think actually the Republican lawmaker's wife just like unloaded all the jewelry off her person, including like a 10 carat diamond ring. And like that was the form of fame that she offered him. So it's kind of crazy. I mean, if you didn't, I would suggest honestly, Cody, go back and actually read that article because it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I read, like I said, I read most of it,
Yeah.
but
But yeah, I
interesting.
mean, what so when you saw that screen come up at the end that said like Gary Johnson years of life, like did it click in your mind like that they're saying this is a real person, or did you just not know what the fuck was going on?
Um,
Or
I
did you
guess
shut it
I,
off
I
before you even saw that?
no, I saw it. I guess I thought it was a real person, but it made you question because I think there were six smaller pictures on the screen, and the bottom right hand one said something like allegedly or something, and it was like,
Oh, well, yeah. So it was something about like the murder, and I think it said like we made that part up.
oh yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was them saying like that is the one thing that they made up. But yeah, it's like I think it's him in like different costumes, and it kind of has like captions saying like what the personas were.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Um,
Super cool story.
yeah, I mean, like I said, it's like it's weird because I did enjoy the movie for what it was, but I do also like honestly feel like someone could take the real story and like even though this movie exists, like just make a more dramatic movie based on it.
Yeah, definitely still have Madison though,
I
with
mean,
with the
gotta have
sex
that
scenes.
hotness. Yeah.
Right. No, I was going to say before you said all that, my favorite part of my actual, this is not a joke, my actual favorite part of the entire movie was just the quote, all pie is good pie.
Yes. Which apparently was actually a true thing.
Really?
I believe that
All
was
pie is
actually,
good pie. Interesting.
I know.
Even strawberry
Uh,
rhubarb?
if I recall correctly, I think that was like a passphrase that he established with one of the people he was meeting, where like they were
Oh.
supposed to come up and comment on the pie that he was eating, and he says, "All
Oh,
pie is
okay.
good pie."
That makes sense because several
Yeah,
people did ask him about the pie in the film. So
yeah. Which again, like, I mean, in retrospect, that's probably what that was supposed to be in the movie, but it's not really established.
yeah.
But yeah, I like that part too.
What a great and simple line though. All pie
Yeah,
is good
all pie
pie.
is good pie. I feel like FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper would agree.
Yeah, for sure. All pie is good pie.
Well, I mean, honestly, I feel like I don't have a whole lot more to say, so let's wrap this puppy up.
Let's do this puppy up.
Cody, final thoughts and numerical score for Hitman.
Um, I don't think it was a great film, but like you said, I did enjoy watching it. I have no regrets that I watched the film. I did think it was enjoyable. It's just kind of a more or less backgroundy rom-com-ish type film. It was even oddly a little more romance than I typically watch, which is probably saying something, but
Well,
I did.
honestly, that's part of the reason I thought it would be interesting to have you watch this because I felt like we were probably coming at it from different angles in terms of like rom-coms and stuff.
Yeah. I enjoyed it though. I was until you told me who that girl was on the other show, and I guess I didn't pick out him from anything he was in immediately either. So, I didn't know the cast, but it was fine. It was serviceable. There were some kind of like surprising moments in the movie. I would maybe recommend somebody watch it. I don't really get why it's at a 97, I will say, on Rotten
It blows my
Tomatoes,
mind.
or that anybody else is fantastic, but it was fun. So I just dropped maybe like a 6.5 on it. It was fun.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh, that's what the JFC stood for. Okay.
That's it for. Um, I mean, I agree. Like I said, it's kind of a mess of a movie. Like it's a really weird, messy movie, and there are a lot of like I guess plot holes. There are a lot of things that just don't really make sense, and a lot of stuff that just doesn't feel like it goes how you would expect, which isn't always a bad thing, but it's fun. Like I would recommend that people check it out. I mean, again, not an amazing movie, but if you're looking to kill some time, you could find worse things to do it with. Um, Glen Powell and Adria Arjona are both beautiful people, and it's fun watching them be hot together for 2 hours or however long this is.
And also, stewardess role plays are fun.
Yeah, I mean, I
What?
would
Stop it.
fly. I
Stop
would
it.
fly her friendly skies. What?
Stop it.
I mean, I'm married, and I would fly my wife's friendly skies.
Right.
Um, the reason I said Jesus fucking Christ is, and I had this written down
Yeah.
in case you don't believe it.
Yeah.
I also gave this movie a 6.5 out of 10.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Uh,
I love it.
so there you have it.
It's
It's
a
messy, but it's
solid
fun.
D.
Those are probably more like B's. Anyway, it's the inverse of the lost joke.
Buzz, 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 buzz. All right.
Uh, anyway,
Goodness.
I don't, I don't have any sort of tricky, but wait, there's more for you tonight. So
Yes.
let's just wrap this one up.
Well, good to have
For
Joe back on the
now,
podcast.
I have been the people's favorite host, Joe. That has been Cody, I guess, if you're into that sort of thing. And tune in next time for another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing.
Friends occasionally
Not
not disagreeing.
disagreeing. Cut.
Yeah. Hey, fondlings and fondlers. This has been another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing, your favorite podcast. It's most people's favorite podcast, or at least so my mom tells me. You can check us out all over the place online at our homepage, www.fondpod.com or fondpodcast.com. You can also check us out across your social media sites, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your streamed podcast. Thanks so much.